Hey everyone, this is George.
And this is Buke.
We're on the Metalheads podcast here, and we are here today with Matt Barlow of Ashes of Ares and, of course, Iced Earth. How you doing today, Matt?
Good, man. Good. How are you guys?
We are doing well.
Doing excellent. It is an honor to speak to you, Matt.
Definitely. Cool. I've been a fan for... Well, I'll get into that later. But anyway, so one question that we like to ask people when we get them on here is, at what age did you get into music? How did you get into music in the first place?
Okay, well, man, I've loved music, since I was a kid, and I would sing, I would be able to memorize songs and stuff like that, and I'd be doing like the Carpenters and On Top of the World and all that other good stuff when I was like 5, and I didn't really start getting into singing until I was in chorus and stuff like that, obviously in school, but I started getting into the kind of the stage band kind of a thing when I was in high school. We had a band in my high school called Excalibur because we were the Golden Knights of Sussex Central.
Nice.
And so that was kind of cool. Kind of metal too, kind of a metal name. Although at that point I wasn't really doing metal, so much. I had a bass baritone voice, and I was sort of equipped for country songs or I did some crisscross and stuff like that. Not crisscross will make you jump. Christopher Cross, that kind of stuff. But that's kind of the stuff that I was doing with that band. And then I started jamming with some friends of mine who were also in that band, but we started another band, and we started doing hard rock and heavy metal, like hair band kind of stuff. Was my friends were more into the hair band kind of stuff, and I was sort of like leaning towards Metallica. So we made a compromise. We did some Metallica, and then we did some hair band stuff and all that, and that's kind of how it went. And then I really started kind of getting into original music with my brother Jim, who's a guitar player, and we got a couple of guys together, and we formed this band called Cauldron. So we did original stuff, and that was kind of like my first kind of introduction into writing and how all that worked. And I think the songs were pretty cool. We were definitely more like thrash oriented. Our big influences were probably Bay Area stuff, Metallica and Slayer, and maybe a little Megadeth and some Forbidden thrown in there.
Nice.
That kind of vibe. That was us. Some Testament definitely can't leave out those.
I have to ask you. George is from a little town in Michigan. You're from Mississippi.
I was born in Mississippi.
Okay. Where were you? Were you? I was going to go where I was going with is if you were raised there, how was the music scene there? Because it doesn't seem like a metal hotbed.
Yeah, no, man. I was actually born on Keesler Air Base because I'm a military kid. Okay. My mom and dad were both in the Navy. Me and my siblings were all born on military bases. But shortly after my birth, my dad was done with the Navy. He did a tour in Vietnam and stuff, and he was done. He had spent 10 years as a corpsman in the Navy, and so I was born in Keesler, and we moved to Delaware like 3 months later. So I grew up in Delaware. I'm a Delaware guy, and to answer your question about metal in Delaware, not so much.
I was going to say, living here in Maryland, the music scene, we're so close. It's small.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's weird, man. But then you got the beautiful part of it is that like Baltimore now is hosting the Death Fest and all that stuff, and that's pretty cool stuff, man. It's different. But there were several bands that, like, when I was coming up, there were several bands that were big. I don't know if you knew the band Mystic Force. They were in Baltimore, and I think they may still be doing some stuff around there. But there were a few people that were really into it, and then there was like some really good clubs. Like, man, over in Pasadena, there used to be a club called the Network. And then,
did you ever go to Hammerjacks?
Hammerjacks, absolutely. before it got torn down, dude. I saw like some of the best shows I've ever seen. Slayer. I saw Slayer at Hammerjacks. That was ridiculous. I saw Pantera when they were first starting out.
Jeez.
The very first tour that they did for Cowboys from Hell. There was like maybe 30 people there. I was one of those guys, and we were just having a great. Now I'm sure it wasn't great for them, but it was certainly great as as somebody like. Because you could take in the music, and they were just spot on, man. They were just, absolutely phenomenal. The shit that they were playing sounded like the record, and it's just really cool. One of those things where you can look back and go, I saw them when they were, actually hung out. They were touring around in a Winnebago. Phil Anselmo of all people was giving me shit for smoking cigarettes, and then it's like, come on, man. But the upside of that too is the guy I didn't realize it was a 21 and up show at the time. Because I had gone to a bunch of shows, network and everything else. They were all, 18 or up or whatever. So I was 20. I wasn't even 21 yet. And Phil was essentially my same age. I think he's maybe a year older than me. And he's like, oh, that's okay, man. Well, we'll get you on the list or whatever. And they did. I got on the list and got in and all that other good stuff. So, I mean, it's really cool. And that kind of stuff has always stuck with me about, being, obviously I enjoy metal, but knowing just being part of that, and I've experienced that so much that the metal crowd, man, are just really, open and cool, and it starts from from the top down. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that are a-holes, man. It just it goes without saying.
Yeah, it goes without saying.
But for the most part, the metal crowd is pretty tight, and I've always thought about that, and I always think about that when talking to people and talking to fans, and I always want to be accessible as possible, and talk to people and be cool with them, and I may not be able to get everybody that's under 21 into a show, but I'll do what I can if it means if they can get into a show or whatever and enjoy the music. So,
was there a particular metal band that like got you into metal in the first place, like from rock music and into metal, like when I was young, like Kiss was a big thing, and then later on Metallica. Was there a particular band that you just like latched onto and said this is it?
Well, I mean, as far as like stuff that got me into metal, it's weird. I missed that Kiss thing. Like John Schaefer was really huge, influenced by Kiss, but John's like 2 years older than me, and that's kind of shows you how the music, it's like, if you miss it by a couple years, you kind of miss the big push. And I probably got more into like AC/DC. That was kind of like heavy for me,
Yeah.
Especially, just, Highway to Hell, man. You say the word hell in, Delaware back in the day. It was like, that was a big thing, and it was kind of rough, and, the musical content. I mean, essentially, they're talking about selling their souls and all this other stuff. And that's pretty heavy stuff, especially for a kid. And I wasn't, I started getting into Black Sabbath like after that, and they were obviously already established and everything, and well established for probably a decade or so. But I didn't get into them until like after that. So like I would say AC/DC, and even oddly enough, I sort of considered Rush, because my first introduction to Rush was like 2112 and Moving Pictures and stuff. There's some dark themes in that stuff too. And even though it's not necessarily metal, it was, heavy themes. And that's the kind of stuff that I've always been interested in more than just the music or like how it sounds or how, because, heavy metal kind of covers a big gambit. And to me, the heavy part is the thing, the heaviness, the conceptual stuff, the dark stuff. I've always kind of been pulled to dark themes and things like that. And, I don't know exactly why, but according to my mother, my granny, who was her mom, she was like huge. And this little old lady was like huge into like Night Gallery and stuff like that, stuff that was scary. And, she, from West Virginia, a little old lady from West Virginia was like into that kind of stuff. So maybe that's where I get it. I don't know. But
what about any particular singers were there any singers that particularly inspired you, first of all, to sing? And like it maybe helps you shape your own style?
Sure. Rob Halford, obviously, Bruce Dickinson, James Hetfield. Man, there's so many. Russ Anderson from Forbidden. I mean, guys that, when I was kind of coming out of that and kind of finding my own way, I heard these guys and I heard certain things about their voices that I was like, well, that kind of sounds like me in this part. But I need to work on this part, like Rob Halford has a really beautiful, like, lower end range. I mean, he has, just some really neat, timbre to his voice. But he was able to do all this high stuff that I couldn't do at the time. I was, so all that stuff I really had to work on.
Matt, I don't know how much you look online at different things, but fans, have an opinion about everything. But if you look online, a lot of people put you there with the greats and stuff. How does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, honored, obviously, man. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, it very, very flattering. Now, I think everybody puts themselves into a thing, and you're always your own worst critic. So you kind of look at it and you go, well, I'm not those guys, and obvious reasons I can say that I'm not Rob Halford, I'm not Bruce Dickinson. I've never attained that kind of status for doing, and it's a combination of things, because it's not just Bruce and it's not just Rob, it's Judas Priest and it's Iron Maiden, and I mean, those guys obviously got to where they are because of a group effort and things like that, and I got to give every bit of credit to John Schaefer for taking me on. I attained what I was able to attain and what I have been able to attain because of John. I mean, I'm not gonna bullshit anybody and say otherwise. I was given an opportunity. I made the best of my opportunity. That's how it works. And but I have always tried to improve upon and expand my instrument, and that's kind of a tough thing to do. And sometimes. And a lot of guys get out there and they abuse it, and they, you just, it's tough, man. When you carry your instrument with you, 24/7, it's really tough to sometimes not abuse it, because that's how we are. That's human nature. But just try to take care of it and roll. And
but Matt, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, man. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when you burst onto the scene, music in the metal world was, like George and I talked about earlier, between ourselves before we called you, was almost non-existent, almost dead. Isn't that what you were saying, George? It was kind of stale.
Well, it was during the alternative grunge time, and so the thrash bands were sort of going away, and I know the death metal and black metal bands were starting to emerge. But for me, as I came up listening during the early '80s, and by the time the early 90s came around, I was really kind of hard-pressed to find new music in the record store that, was metal that I was, really excited about. And in fact, Night of the Storm Rider, when that came out, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah,
and I loved that. And then the next album came out. I opened it up and I was looking at it and I was like, wait a minute, they changed singers. I was like, no.
The curse of the changing singers. Yeah.
And I was so disappointed until I played it. And and ever since then, you've been the voice of Iced Earth for me. So
that's cool, man. I appreciate that.
What were you saying, Matt?
I was going to ask you.
I was just going to say that record is kind of an interesting thing because for me, obviously, it holds a lot of sentimental value for me, and it was one that we didn't play a lot of because John just really, he had that was like marked a dark time in his life, even though, hopefully now he looks back at it and goes, well, that was a pretty good time though, because, I picked up Matt and we did a lot with that. But there's a lot of cool songs on that record, and there, wherever the inspiration came from, whether it was just pure negativity, but a lot of people still say that's one of their favorite records because it was the first one they listened to or whatever, but also I think because of the, those themes and that darkness and heaviness, and, we have a lot of death and black metal fans that really, that's the record that they go to. And the cool thing about that is it kind of shows you the diversity of Iced Earth and what we were able to do. And we kind of, bridged a lot of divides in metal and did a lot of different things. And, people would always try to put Iced Earth or whatever into a whole, and what are you? Are you this or that or the other? And, the answer is just metal, it's heavy metal. And because you can't really kind of go, where is it? And that's, that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah. The album we're talking about here is Burnt Offerings. And I just realized last night that this month marks the 20th anniversary of the release of Burnt Offerings.
Wow.
Do you have any thoughts on that milestone?
I don't really. That's a long time there, man. Thanks a lot for.
Thanks for making me feel old, George.
Well, it made me feel old too because, like I was saying, I bought that when it first came out 20 years ago, and that little story about the looking through the booklet, it was 20 years ago, and it doesn't seem that long ago, but time flies.
Yep, it does. But hopefully people will go, well, let's listen to some oldies and pick up record, and listen to it. I mean, that's great. That's awesome.
I kind of got ahead of myself there, but I still wanted to ask you about the best show you've ever attended.
Because, Matt, I wanted George and I to ask this. I saw on your Facebook a couple months back, you posed a great question to your fans. What was their greatest live experience? And I saw you, maybe to help your memory here, you mentioned something about seeing Ozzy at the Salisbury Civic Center and then talking to Zakk Wylde after the show.
Yeah, like at the Burger King. It was bizarre. It was like, because they pulled up on a bus, and I think, man, I cannot remember who was drumming for them at the time. It was because those two guys were on the same bus. I think they had the bus. Of course, Ozzy was, he was somewhere else and doing. I think he, but yeah, it was like his first tour. It was Zakk Wylde's first tour, and it was like maybe their second or third show. I think.
Was it Randy Castillo?
It was Castillo, exactly. Yeah, and Castillo was kind of but Zakk. I mean, I'm not saying maybe he just had a bad night, but he was kind of like he was more, I think, talking to the girls or something. I don't know, but Zakk was like really wide-eyed, fresh-faced, and like just really happy to talk to people, and that's cool. And I don't know that he's not still that way. And actually, I met Zakk one other time. I think he was going to fly into Florida, and I was flying at the same time or something. We were on the same flight. He was going to a clinic, I think, maybe, and I was flying for some reason. Anyway, I talked to him for a bit then too. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, that was a really cool experience, and I cannot remember what year that was. 89 maybe, something like that. And see if I recall right, White Lion and Vixen were open for them. Yeah.
Wow. For listeners of the podcast here, I may have said it in the past. I myself in law enforcement. Matt is himself in law enforcement too. I wanted to ask you, Matt, has the reception been positive for you over the years in changing into that field?
I think for the most part it has, man. I mean, obviously you're going to have some people that just hate. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They just can't. They can't. But I mean, I think most of those folks probably don't converse with me, or they don't. Whatever. They don't. They're not fans on Facebook or whatever. I mean, maybe they are just because whatever. But some people just they're just not ever going to like police or whatever. I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and people don't like, and
the climate is not favorable.
Everybody's gonna have opinions, and that's fine, man. But that does. I would say that 99%, man. I mean, is positive, and people get it, and people understand that have to have police, man. There has to be some sort of law and order. Anarchy would never work in a million years, because anarchy essentially is the strongest survive. Like, period, and that's it. And you have to have laws to set up for the meek. You know what I mean?
Of course. That's you want to say sheepdog in the sheep. That's how I've heard it described before.
Yep. That's it, man. I mean, and we do our best, man. That's that's all I can say. I'm sure Buke understands, knows that, and we do our best and do our job.
Do you think you get asked about it, in recent years, because a lot of people can't fathom a metal singer being an officer at the same time? Almost like they don't go together. Yeah,
but I guess, man. But I guess you'd be surprised. I think there's a lot of metalheads. I mean, are there as many metalheads as maybe country music listeners in the law enforcement field? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there are quite a few. I'm even in my department. There's some metalheads that one of my captain, one of his favorite bands is Megadeth. So it just I think we're all growing up, and we a lot of the guys that are in law enforcement now. I mean, we're listening to Metallica on regular stations back in the day. When the Black Album came out, and those guys grew up listening to it. Whether it was directly, hey, I'm a metalhead, or if it was just I'm listening to the radio and I'm hearing Metallica and Megadeth and Ozzy and all this stuff. So it's not. I just don't think it's a stretch. I don't think that there's as much of a stigma attached to heavy metal. Certainly not as back when I was coming up, and it was like the people at going to Ozzy and protesting and stuff like that, and because he's biting the heads off of rubber bats and stuff.
Now, one of the questions, probably the biggest question I wanted to ask you, but when I got you on, is in our line of work, on any given day, tragically, our departments both have lost officers in the line of duty. We could run into somebody who their only, goal could be to end our lives. Has that made you take a step back and maybe look throughout the years and say, you know what? Maybe those times that we got upset that this show didn't have these many people here, or this record didn't do so well. I'm kind of maybe put things in perspective now because with the birth of my first child over the summer, me personally, it made me in going to work every day, put things in perspective a lot more. And I wondered, since you've seen two different worlds, of touring the world in a band and now your day to day work.
I think that just comes with. Not only with the career in law enforcement, but just also with growing up and, like you said, having kids. I mean, everything like that, it changes your perspective, and that's one of the coolest things about still doing music and doing it, maybe in a more limited aspect with Ashes of Aries because of careers and things like that with guys in the band, mine included. But you do it because you love it, man, and that's what it is for me, and that's what it's come down to. It's less of a drive for me to excel, quote excel in the music industry, and by that I mean do whatever you can to scratch and claw your way to the top, or just produce good music that you enjoy, that you want other people to hear, and you want to share. You want to share with those other people. And when we do go out on tour and we do stuff, it's not about how many people we can get packed in. Obviously, you want people to come to your show and enjoy your show, but at the same time, if there's 15 people show up, 15, 20 people, you're still going to put on the best possible show you can. You're going to have fun with it, and then when you're done with the show, you're going to get out there and shake hands and talk to them, and and do what you do. You're there to entertain, and you're there to bring your music out, and that's what it's about for me now. I mean, I've always wanted it to be that way. Obviously, at other points in my life, we were really concerned about how many people were getting in here and all this other stuff. And, it changes your perspective on things. But I do this music because I love it. And that's the most important thing. And that's, another reason why I'm in law enforcement, because I love it. If I didn't love it and I figured that out within a couple years, I'd probably be doing something else. But, I'm going on 12 years and I love what I do. So.
Yeah, I have 10 years on too, but it's a calling. You feel it inside yourself. Do you, transitioning into law enforcement now, do you look back with any regrets for your past days in the metal world?
No, I really don't, man. I mean,
okay, because you've transitioned now into Ashes of Aries, which sounds like you have a great balance between the work and band life.
Yeah. I mean, it's worked out really, really well, man. And like I said, I've got obviously great support systems. My wife is very supportive. My family's really supportive. My other my bandmates are very supportive. How balancing that out, and my my career, my comrades at the department are very supportive.
Do they all know who you are prior to this job?
What do you mean?
Do they know the greatness? Who, when they meet you for the first time, do they realize who they're talking to?
Yeah. Well, some of the guys when guys come on or whatever, they may not know, but then
they
typically somebody will say something, and then they'll Google, and then it'll go on from there. But yeah, I still have one guy I've worked with for a couple of years now. He every time I walk in the room, he goes, "The rock star," But that's who he is,
Yeah, I've got a friend like that too. He's in a semi-national band, and we work together, and everybody there calls him the rock star too. So
right, yeah. So it's all in good fun. But yeah, I mean, I just think that guys are really supportive. There are some guys that have come out to shows. Some guys that that obviously can't. We're a small department, so every time I do a show, like at least half the guys, they're going to be working. so can't shut down the town to come out and see the show. But
no, you can't.
Right. But I appreciate the support that I do get, and I know everybody's really supportive of what I do musically and stuff like that. So that's cool.
As long as the command staff allows you to do it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and that's really been awesome. I mean, like I was saying before, my captain's he's a metalhead, maybe more of a closet metalhead, but he likes to work out to Megadeth and stuff like that. And when I went back with Iced Earth for those couple of years, and we were doing a lot of shows. He helped kind of move the schedule around a little bit and help me out, help me utilize my vacation days the best of their ability. But that's pretty much what I do. I try not to take unpaid leave or anything like that, because that just hurts the department in the long run. And so I try to stay within the parameters of using my paid leave to do what I do, and it's worked out really well so far. So.
Great. Are you still doing anything with the First State Force Band?
No, man, I really haven't for a couple of years. And I kind of, when I went back with Iced Earth, I kind of definitely got away from that, because I had so much going on, man. I had, little kids, our first son was born in 05, and then, our second was born in 07. And so just so many things going on. And, I definitely appreciate the cause and the message. I couldn't do it anymore. It was a lot of stuff going on, and it was kind of a lot to do. And those guys, there's a lot of talented guys in the band, and there are a lot of talented people within the law enforcement community in Delaware. So I don't think they're missing me. So.
Right. That sounded like a cool project, sort of a way to work both things in.
It is, and the message mainly is obviously keep away from drugs, violence, and respect people. Those are the kind of the main themes of the band, and it's targeted towards elementary school kids. Now I always thought kind of a cool concept would be to do something heavier and directed towards high school, but I don't know how that would work either. I don't know if high school kids are more cynical now or what. But I remember back when I was in high school, there was a rock band that went around, and they kind of had the same message. And I think they were Christian backed, but they weren't like, here's a bunch of Bibles or anything like that. They just kind of had the same message, kind of do the right thing, and kind of stay away from drugs and stay on the right path. I don't know if I was affected by that, but I certainly appreciated the fact that they were bringing heavier music in and stuff like that, and they sounded good. They were doing like Van Halen and different things, and I thought it was a kind of a cool thing, and we got to see that in high school. I can't remember what the name of the group was, but I thought it was kind of a cool thing.
So I got to say, when I first heard about Ashes of Ares, I had to do a little like fist pump and just be like, yes, he's back. How did you come about with coming up with Ashes of Ares? Obviously, you needed some sort of output, but I mean, how did it come together?
Well, Freddie and I were kind of the ones that started things. We had actually talked about doing some stuff with one another aside from Iced Earth back when we were both in Iced Earth. And so essentially when Freddie quit Iced Earth, he was on for another tour or two after me. He was on the first record that Stu did vocals on, and then they toured on that record, and then he just kind of was he was kind of had enough with it and wanted to do something else. And he's got a career. He's an engineer and things like that. So when he left Iced Earth, chatted, and he was like, let's start writing some stuff, and we both had ideas, and we kind of came together with our ideas, and through the wonder of the internet, we were able to share files and stuff like that and bounce ideas back and forth. And once we got several songs kind of where we wanted them, we approached Van about playing drums, because we knew that we wanted a drummer. I knew Van for a long time. We toured, did several tours with them with Iced Earth and Nevermore. And Van's an extremely,
he is amazing.
Yeah, he's an extremely chill guy too. You know what I mean? Just very funny and relaxed, very talented. And besides his drumming talents, he's also a graphic artist, and so obviously that brought another element to it. I mean, he did the graphic art the graphic arts for the cover and everything.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's all his stuff. So he did Nevermore's logo and all those records. I mean, that's like his stuff. So
wow.
So that was obviously another element that was like really cool. And he had just quit Nevermore, and I said, man, we're going to give you some stuff and listen to it and see if you like it. And then we all got together at one point, and he was in. So So then the three of us started doing stuff, and the stuff that Freddie and I already had, we gave it to Van. Van added a whole nother dimension, with the drums, and it was just cool, man. It was very organic, and just felt right, and like the stuff that we were putting out, it just had our own vibe. And I know a lot of people will put it in the Eister category. I think for the most part, because my vocals are on it, people go, hey, that sounds like Eister.
I was just about to say that.
You have a very distinctive sound, so of course.
Yeah, but if you listen to it, there's not a whole lot of that galloping that John's famous for, and stuff like that.
That's a great point.
We broke it up. There's quite a few little different styles and things like that within it. And I'm not to say that John doesn't have a diversity to his writing, but there are certain key things that you grab on, and it's Iced Earth. It's Iced Earth. And I think that with that, as far as our catalog keeps increasing and we keep doing records, I think people are going to say the same thing about Ashes, because they're going to get that there's that combination between whatever it is, my voice and Freddie's guitar playing and Van's drumming, and it's going to be Ashes, and that's a cool thing too. And I don't hate that people compare us to Iced Earth, because obviously I have a vested interest in Iced Earth. For several records, so I mean that's all good, man. I mean I don't have any problem with that at all, being in that same category. So I take it as a compliment, and I think we all do. So
right on. Who came up with the name Ashes of Aries?
Well, I did, and I kind of shot it past the guys. But we were kind of trying to figure out what direction we were going to go and what we were going to call ourselves and things like that, because we definitely had the band before we had the name of the band. But I thought of this thing, and the only I was like thinking we need to do some heavy but sympathetic, and this kind of thing we're trying to kind of get, so that like the yin and the yang kind of vibe, and that's kind of where I went with it. Of course, I Googled it, and I found some other kids, and I don't know even what country they're from, had like something up on YouTube, and it was like a garage band name, and I was like, well,
I'm bigger. I'm Matt Barlow.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, kids.
I was like, well, I guess they can try to sue me. But
get your lunch money together.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really worried, and I would hope that and I've made comments about it, and I hope that they're happy that they they had the idea first, I guess, But I just thought it was a cool thing, and the concept, and the thing that when I explained it to the guys, my concept was it can mean dual meanings. It can
or
either mean
triple meanings. It can mean we smashed teenage bands.
Oh, come on!
Right, no, right. That's the hidden meaning. We don't want that to be to the forefront. But the main thing is that the Ashes of Aries can either mean the ashes that are left behind after Ares has gotten everyone on Earth to commit to war, and we've wiped ourselves out, or the flip of that is a time in Earth's history, future history, hopefully, where war has been eliminated, and those are the only thing left of Ares is the ashes, because he no longer exists. Because his soul can't exist, because he thrives off of war. Obviously, that's his power. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the yin and the yang kind of idea, and we like to. I certainly in writing lyrics and stuff, I always like to mess with dual concepts. I like people to be able to think, well, it means this, but then it could mean this, and and kind of leave that question, or leave that the answer to you as a listener.
Hey, Matt, speaking about your lyrics and stuff, and power metal fans are historically, I've seen on the internet, like known for this. Have you had people like diving a little too deep into your lyrics, and you being like, yeah, that's cool, but maybe that's a little more deep than what I was even going with that?
Yeah, and I'm also putting in a box all the time as for some reason they think Ashes of Aries is a Christian band or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm like, where are you? I mean, yes, I deal with concepts of heaven and hell all the and I have, because again that is something that's interesting to me. I think that the mythology involved there, whether it be Christian, Greek, or other mythologies, is cool to me. And I'm not saying that, there's not a viable thing with Christianity. And, I'm not going down that road either. I'm not bashing anybody's religion. I feel absolutely, 100% that everybody has the right to practice whatever religion, as long as it's not encroaching upon my rights. But, it's just weird that people automatically go, oh, they're a Christian, man, because I use the word God, or whatever. But I don't like to leave anybody out. I like to look at all aspects of it, whether it be, evil, or the devil, or God, or whatever, because obviously you can't really have a devil without there being a God. And, as far as that the mythos of that. So I touch on all that kind of stuff, man. That's my wheelhouse right there. Yeah. I like it, and these will be reoccurring themes, so just stand by.
The internet is famous for making shit up, for bashing you, bashing whoever, bashing sure. John.
Sure.
Did you try and stay away from when you left Ice Earth? Because it seems like it was on great terms, but the internet made John out to be this big asshole, and you were, like the victim. And Iced Earth, pushed you out and stuff like that. I always wanted to get some clarity on that.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think that John made a business decision, and I don't fault anybody for that at all. We're talking about the first time. Well, here, we'll start with the first time. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So when we're doing Glorious Burden, obviously 9/11 affected almost everybody almost everybody on the planet, especially people within the U.S. I was affected in a way that kind of made me step back and take a look at where I was in my life at this particular time. Okay, I'm 31 years old. Where am I in the big scope of things? And at that point, I wasn't getting paid by Iced Earth. Yes, I've gone and done some really cool tours and gotten paid, but I wasn't making a living, not by any stretch of the imagination. We'd entered into a new deal, or we were getting ready to enter into a new deal with SPV. And I basically went to John. I was like, man, I think right now is probably a good time for me to step out, because you've got a new deal now. I can go and do something else with my life. And at that point, I was looking at law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go to school and go to, take some CJ classes and stuff like that and kind of form a different path. Well, John had talked me into staying, and I did. And I was, kind of on a salary kind of a thing. It was not a lot, by any stretch. I guess it was better than I had ever gotten, but it wasn't great. So I was doing other work for John and things like that, and as well as singing. And we were doing Glorious Burden. Obviously, John was influenced. Again, 9/11 really influenced him for that record and stuff like that. And so I went in, cut the tracks for the record, and John had gone down to Florida to mix it with Jim. And then John came back home and said, look, man, not really wasn't feeling the vibe of it, and I'm going to let you go. So, that's pretty much it. Wow. He made a call, and, I respected it. And actually that was fine, and it couldn't have been more perfect timing, because here's exactly what I did. I was like, okay, cool. Went home, talked to my wife. I said, now's the time. So I started putting in applications to places. Franklin, Indiana, PD. Put in an application. I tested. One of the greatest things I ever did was test there, because it was one of the hardest tests. Well, out of all the tests,
written or the physical test.
The written test.
Yeah.
One of the hardest tests that I took on any of the tests that I took in law enforcement. But it got me ready for all the other ones. Now I only made it to like the 12th spot. So, and they were only hiring so many. So I didn't get the gig, but I started putting in other places in Delaware, over here in Delaware and stuff. Anyway, long story short, after making several trips to Delaware and testing and doing physicals and all this other stuff, I'm in the academy 6 months later. So after getting fired from Iced Earth, I'm in the academy for Georgetown. So the timing couldn't have been better, man. It really couldn't have been, as far as me starting this career, and it just worked out. And then so I'm on the job for a couple of years, and since I'm on the road in 2004, and then John gets a hold of me through my wife, who is his sister, okay. And basically starts saying, hey, I'd like to have you back, what have you. And no,
may I quickly interrupt you here for
sure,
one quick? How did you feel when they brought in Tim for that short period of time?
Well, obviously, man, I'd spent pretty much my professional career with Iced Earth, so I'd be lying if I said my feelings weren't hurt a little bit.
Of course.
But, it is what it is, man. Looking back at it now, looking back at it now, I go, it worked out really well. And now, fortunately, because of it, I think Tim and I have a pretty darn good relationship. We're not obviously he lives in Ohio and stuff like that, but we're not, but we respect one another professionally, and that's about as good as you can ask, man. I mean, that's that mutual respect. So that's a very cool thing.
You mentioned that you cut tracks for the Glorious Burden, so that means that they exist somewhere. We could technically see a reissue with Matt Barlow on vocals.
Yeah, but they're not going to be nearly. They're not going to be nearly as good as what Tim.
I've seen you sing them live. You singing Declaration Day live. Oh man, at the Festivals of the Wicked DVD. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, but I'm singing it the way Tim sang it, and what was on the record was not that way. Okay, so I mean, I took inspiration from Tim as well as I needed to sing it like it was on the record. Or do it in my best ability to sing it that way, and that's Tim, man. I mean, I wouldn't want it reissued, man, because Tim did a phenomenal job on it, and I gotta say, I still gotta respect the heck out of him, man. He was singing songs that were some of them were my lyrics, like Attila and Waterloo. I mean that stuff, those were my lyrics, and Tim sang them and did a phenomenal job on them, and that was really cool. So I mean, I hope that they don't ever try to reissue any of the stuff, and hopefully those tracks are growing. I mean, I've got some CDs with the stuff, but it's demoed up, and it's not good, and it won't ever see the light of day where I'm.
Yeah, from a fan perspective, it would just be cool to hear, sort of like when you get all the bootlegs from the Grateful Dead and things like that. Just to hear it. Obviously, the finished product is probably going to be the better thing, but
Okay, so Matt, you started to say before I interrupted you that your John had reached out to your wife, his sister.
Right. In 2007, and then and then we're doing shows in 2008. And then, we did that for a couple of years, and we did work around my schedule for the most part. But it got to a point where, the music industry, man, is just brutal right now. And it has been for several years. And guys just cannot make money off of recording records.
It sounds like you saw the writing on the wall, Matt.
Well, I guess I did. But John, and here's the thing. I think we probably did. And we talked to John about this, and I was like, man, are you sure? When he called and wanted me back to do the record and a tour and stuff like that, I was like, man, are you sure? And Heather and I both were really, hey man, are you sure you want this? And he was sure. But after a couple years, it became, painfully evident that Iced Earth could not make it as a band, and John couldn't make a living off of it without touring heavy, really heavily, and that just it just wasn't something that I could do, man. I mean, he asked me, said, he wanted me on full time, and I said, man, I can't do it, and that's basically it. So I stepped out, and Stu came in, man, and it's been doing really well for them, I think.
Do you think that the instability of the band's lineup has hurt Iced Earth over the years? I mean, I was going back and counting, and there's been, just vocalists alone, there's been 5 vocalists since the first album. From a fan perspective, do you think that hurts the band?
Maybe. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know if it's hurt or not. I mean, because the thing is that I think that the fans have progressively, gotten big. I think there are more Iced Earth fans now than there were back then. I think, I don't know that for sure to be sure, but I think that there probably are. And probably a lot of that has to do with all the touring that they're doing. Mm-hmm. It's something that we probably should have done a lot more of when I was in the band and when I was, when we were solidly in there, but we didn't, because I think probably one of the things is that the motivation wasn't there. Certainly not for John, because John was making money off the records, to a degree, and also he was also making money in his defense. He was making money on doing stuff with Hansi, with Demons and Wizards and stuff like that. So I mean, John was happy and content with doing this and not doing this, but obviously for a guy that was more of a paid musician type guy to begin with, it would have been better for me to be on the road all the time, but I wasn't, so I don't know, man. It's the industry, you know. Just the way it changes. If obviously that's not where I'm at right now. I'm not gonna be out there on the road busting my hump at 45 years old. You know, doing that all the time. You know, Ashes of Aries is going to get out there, and we're going to do, you know, as many shows as we can. But we're not going to be touring for 6-9 months out of the year. It's just not going to happen.
And Matt, that leads me into my next question. Ashes of Aries. You guys' last album came out what, two years ago now?
2013.
Yeah. Can we expect anything new coming, buddy?
Yeah, man, we're working on it. We're writing. We're still writing. Obviously, there have been some things going on with Freddie's moved from New Hampshire back down to Arizona, so he's kind of had a big move there with a job and all that. Van's got stuff going on with Ghost Ship Octavius, which is his, you know, another band that he's involved with. So, you know, we still got stuff going on. We still got stuff, you know, bouncing around, but we are currently writing and getting our stuff, all of our stuff in one sock. So,
does the landscape of music now, Matt, change how you move forward in terms of, hey, maybe you could do like a 3-track small release it online, or 4, whatever. Does that change your, you know, going forward?
Yeah, I mean that is a good point, and that may be something that we consider in the future. That's not a bad idea. I mean, we have actually thought of doing that kind of stuff. You know, doing smaller releases and you know, here and there, because, you know, like you said, it is a different landscape altogether. You know,
Matt, I hear your kids in the background. I have, you know, my daughter now. Your kids and my daughter may never even buy an album again. Physically, they may just buy tracks here and there.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad, man, because I still like to, you know, and I know, you know, even with like movies and stuff like that, I know that you can download movies to own now and all. Man, there's something about that physical, you know, getting it, even if you order it from Amazon and it comes, you know, 2 days later, just having that physical thing there, you know, to see and open it up and look at it and go, you know what, I own this. And it seems like we are getting away from that as a society. It's like, we'll download everything's an app, you know, everything's downloadable, and it just, there's something, I don't know, something kind of sterile about that, don't you think? I mean,
yeah, we're both big vinyl fans, so we're always trying to push the vinyl initiative.
Right, the vinyl revolution.
Exactly. So,
what do you think about the vinyl revolution? Do you think it's a fad?
I don't know, man. I mean, the thing is, I think, and I probably should put my money where my mouth is and buy a turntable. I've got several friends that actually do have turntables, and they're getting into vinyl, and it's not just metal; it's other forms of vinyl, and they're, you know, they say it is having the best of both worlds, because they buy a turntable and then they can convert that stuff into MP3s if they want to, or whatever. But, you know, but that vinyl still just does have that rich, really rich sound. So
definitely, yeah. I've also been getting into high definition digital audio so that I can sort of have the best of both worlds, because I like to have the vinyl at home where I can look at the artwork and spin the vinyl, but at the same time I like to have the portability of digital. And you know, recently I've come to find out just how much of the sound you actually lose when you're listening to an MP3 as opposed to like a lossless rip from a CD or something like that.
Right.
And so I've been trying to, you know, convert all my CDs into these FLAC files for my digital portability. Yet at the same time, I'm also building up my vinyl collection so that I can have the cozy, fuzzy, warm feelings that, you know, I used to get when I was younger.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing that some people, I'm not sure if the casual listener really cares or not, but, you know, I think that, you know, the folks that like to go and put the full headphones on, and, you know, everybody, that's the whole thing now. Everybody's, you know, with the Beats, and they're really awesome headphones, you know, but you know, hey man, plug it into something that you can really enjoy. I mean, it's being lost in MP3s, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Plug those awesome headphones into something that it actually produces a you know, really beautiful sound. And that was one of the things that I really, when Nuclear Blast released like the streaming stuff and the record and released, and people were listening to it in MP3 format, man, and they're like, oh, you know, it sounds really bassy, and that was our biggest thing. It's really bassy. It sounds really bassy. I was like, but here's the thing, and here's my argument. Please get it on CD and then crank it up like you're listening to a metal record, man. And you will, it's amazing how that just, you get that total separation. It was the way, because the thing is, the way it was recorded and the way it was mastered so that it should be heard at heavy metal volumes. You know what I mean?
George had that experience with Lossless File a couple weeks back.
Yeah, when you're listening to an MP3, the high end, it really gets cut. It's sort of like a telephone. It kind of takes the highs and the lows and just cuts everything and leaves everything in the middle.
Yep.
And so I was in the car playing something, and I had it up at a certain level, and I was like, boy, that really sounds kind of muddy. And I was like, wait a minute, I've got Tidal now, this lossless, it's like Spotify, but for lossless audio. Mm-hmm. And so I put on the same album there, and it was just a world of difference. It was so much clearer. Right. That muddiness just went away.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and that's the only thing that I don't like. I mean, I think it's a good thing to sample basically how music, whether the song, like the song structure, kind of what's there, but don't put all your faith in MP3, and don't just download, don't just cheat and download music, the free music, because it's on MP3. If you really want to enjoy it, I think on that level, you really need to buy it and get that full feeling, man. I mean, that's where it's at. You cannot cram that much information into an MP3 and have it sound really good. You can't do it.
Nope.
Matt, I got two more, then we'll let you go here. I wanted to ask you, when you started Ashes of Aries, was it a concern for you trying to maybe convince fans to get them on board with you to where they don't always view you as Iced Earth Matt Barlow, that this is something new? Or are you fine when fans think of your name, they think of Iced Earth, and then you mentioned earlier that they're always comparing you to that.
Right. No, man, dude, I'm not one of those guys that's going to deny my past or like I said, I'm very open as far as giving John credit for giving me a shot. You know what I mean? I mean, I know partly the reason that I am where I am is because of John, and I'll totally give credit to Iced Earth for that. And I'm not like one of those deniers, and I don't go, oh, it's all me and this is me. Have I tried to do some different things as far as, because I do have more creative control, obviously with Ashes of Aries, I've definitely tried to do more in different things. I mean, I'm not trying to lose my identity at all, but I'm trying to, expound upon it.
You ever tried and do something extremely different from what you do?
Well, no, but that may be in the future. that may be in the near future.
Awesome.
I'm not giving anything away, but
he's not giving anything away. But how awesome would it be, George? Like Matt Barlow, like a pure thrash album, or like he even pulls out death vocals or something. Think about death vocals with his clean singing. Oh.
Well, if there's any death vocals, I'm probably going to leave that to Freddie or Van, because those are both guys that can do death vocals.
Save your voice. We don't want you hurting that.
Yeah, I mean, but there's always that thing. There's that beautiful part, and I would definitely say that expect to hear our musical influences probably in the next record. We'll try to expound upon things. I think the three of us in our mind, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to keep pushing the envelope. You know what I mean? As long as people will listen to us and go, "Hey, man, I like you guys and all that, but that death metal shit, that's got to go." And that's fine. But we want to keep pushing ourselves and doing different things, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You should see the both of us while you were talking. We were both sort of like wiggling in our chairs excitedly going, yes, we can't wait to hear this.
Yes, we're giving like fucking power fists. Yes.
Cool. Whatever you end up doing.
Matt, just keep it up, brother.
Yeah. When I heard Ashes of Aries, the first album, it just blew me away. And I was listening to it again this morning, and it's just pretty damn amazing. Yeah. So good job.
Matt, George and I have heard thousands upon thousands of albums. George has a decade on me, but your voice is one of the best in the whole metal scene. So keep it up, brother.
Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, kind of getting back to this record, and you guys talking about it. I really appreciate, and I've said this a couple different times, but I really appreciate the folks that have picked up the record, and especially the ones that have said, "Look, I keep going back to it," because to me that's the important thing. There have been records that I've heard in my life that I listened to it like a couple times, and then that's like the last I listened to it. Or occasionally I'll go back and I'll listen to one or two tracks or whatever. But if this record is a grower, and it's one of those things where people listen to it once and then they listen to it a second time and then they listen to it a third, and they keep listening to like the nuances of it and appreciating it more, man, that to me that's the best thing that there can ever be.
Do you care how fans listen now? Do you want them to buy it? Of course you want them to buy it. But do you care if they're on Spotify streaming it, if they're on YouTube watching it?
I would just like people to understand that obviously the more support we get financially,
of course,
from for the record company, because we're never getting paid for this. We're never getting anything more than we got for doing the record. I understand that. I know that. There's just never gonna, because that's the way the industry is, man. And they've got to make it back their money. And so, but by them making back their money, they'll sign us for another record. You know what I mean? And that's what people need to understand. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to be on our own. We're going to be doing stuff, and we will. We would take care of it ourselves, and we'll keep doing stuff no matter what it takes. But that financial help is what makes us be able to get into a studio and have pay a really good guy to turn knobs for us and tell us where we're screwing up and how to make these songs sound better. Those guys need to get paid. We don't necessarily, as the writers and the musicians and the guys that this is our baby, we don't need to get paid, man. That's fine. We're not doing this but we do have to pay people to produce this stuff, because we're not the guys that are the gearhead guys that on the weekends write music. We're musicians, and this is what we do. We can conceptualize and we can write and we can put these songs together, but we can't make a record. So those guys need to get paid, and for us to do that, we need to have a budget, and for us to have a budget, we need to have a deal, and for us to have a deal, we need to have people that are buying records. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those deals. It's just the brutal truth of the industry, and this record that we made is probably with the smallest budget of any record that I've ever been on.
Wow.
That every single record, this is the smallest budget.
Doesn't sound like it. And I watched, I woke up with my 9-month-old and I fed her today. Even on YouTube, all your guys' videos has like 300,000 hits, 400,000 hits. People are watching it. People are listening to it.
Yeah, and that's cool. Yeah, that's just me and my wife watching them over and over again.
You guys, it's fun on constant repeat. See, the thing is,
we put in the time. Okay, we're going to spend an hour inflating our numbers.
Matt, you will be happy to know my wife today. I woke up at 8:00. I gave my baby a bottle. My wife comes in to me. She goes, "It's too early for that. How do you listen to that?" I said, "Babe, it's never too early for metal. I have a newborn baby to start training. She needs to listen to this." And Matt, I have even at work in my cruiser, I'm blaring your guys' stuff. I'm supporting you 24/7, brother.
Right on, man. I appreciate that. I really do.
All right, well, I think we're about ready to wrap this up. We want to thank Matt Barlow for talking to us today. Do you have anything else you wanted to say before we go?
Well, again, I'd just like to really thank everybody for their support, man. For our first record, Ash Severius has done. Yeah, I think it's done really well. The more we keep going out on the road and we keep doing these tours, we're definitely planning something coming up here in the spring or early summer. So everybody kind of keep their eyes and ears open for that. And just can't thank you enough for the support, and just keep listening.
All right, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next time.